4-6. In addition, notice of this meeting was posted in Village Hall and on the village website and has been filed in the office of the village clerk. Official action may not be taken. Susan Caljean, village clerk.
Thank you. So I got a couple of little quick updates. One is a conversation I've been having a little bit with Trustee Schnall, a little bit with some other folks, which is trying to figure out a way to identify, and it's something that we've done, I think, a really exceptional job of in the downtown, and now we're doing a very exceptional job of on Irvington Ave, which is identifying that within South Orange there are multiple different types of business communities that exist and figuring out ways to support all of them. So it's not just supporting retail storefronts in the downtown, but it's supporting the secondary business district on Irvington Ave, and it's also finding a way to support business owners in town who might own a business and work out of their house or work out of Starbucks. I certainly see those people down there all the time, myself I guess included. And that there are really interesting ways to create support communities for that. And whether that is doing some of what the Public Information and Marketing Committee does, which Trustee Schnall will talk a little bit more about later, as far as holding meetups and bringing business communities together. That also includes something, for example, exploring whether we want to try and create a co-working or business incubation space in the village. And that would be something that would, we know we've got a lot of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial-minded people in South Orange. We've got a great business school just right up the road at Seton Hall. And we've got a downtown that's obviously a very easy commute to the city, where coming out here for a meeting, a meeting is not a huge ask anymore.
I like that idea of a space where people who work from home or hang out at Starbucks, that can be an incubator space. I like that.
So yeah, it's something that we've talked about a little bit, and starting to try and push that conversation forward. So it's just wanted to give a little bit of update that it is something that we're talking about, thinking about, trying to see what spaces could potentially work, what people out there are out there that could provide that, some level of support for creating that community here. And so anyway, so there's certainly expect to hear more about that in the future. But I just think that that it is a good example of how we've done a good job of not just kind of lumping everybody into one category, but is looking at businesses and separating them out, and that each of these different business communities has different needs, and the kind of home-based business owner is a whole different thing, and some towns are starting to do more there, and so are we, and so that's just something to kind of keep a lookout for, as we continue to develop that idea a little bit.
Just a question, where is that conversation happening right now? In which?
There's a little bit of it happening in the Public Information and Marketing Committee. Some of it's just happening between me and business owners, or the administration and business owners, or it's fairly ad hoc at the moment. I think if we get really serious about an idea, for example, if we've identified a space, or if we've identified a group of people that would be providing the service, that creating a group of people to walk through the rest of the process would probably make sense. But it's a conversation that all of us could be having and should be having, and if anyone wants to participate more, But it's very informal kind of right now.
Public Information and Marketing?
Yeah. So well, you make a weird face on that.
I do, just because we're going through a master planning process right now, where that conversation is very legitimate. I agree with it completely.
So
but
the reason
we need to be on the front end of trying to.
So as President Torpey described, a lot of specifics are far from being worked out. But what it is promoting our community and helping our residents to kind of fulfill some of their desires to build businesses, to give them an opportunity, whether it be in a home-based business or getting together. So part of that is we can offer an environment and a community, which is a big part of what we do as trustees, is offering that environment. So the meetups that we do are just an example, and I guess I should wait till the committee reports and I'll describe some of the other examples. But it's very early stage conversations that we all are having and should be having as ways of promoting our village and its residents.
I think that's very legitimate conversation, but the sooner the better. And we've got the code review committee right now where you're looking at zoning issues. And so if this is something legitimately, especially home-based businesses, which historically, if you look at our master plan, that's been challenging in the past as well. If we're trying to encourage that, the sooner that whatever groups are working on it can kind of submit recommendations on how we can allow for more of that in the town, at least for consideration. I just don't want to get through the code review all those things that are very tangible right now that hopefully can be done in the new year, get that to this group so that we can make those recommendations to planning and zoning, which trustee Rosner chairs, and then to the full board of trustees.
There are two parts to the conversation, right? There's the kind of policy part, which is what you're talking about,
Yes.
right? And then there's kind of the other part, I don't know, yeah, I guess logistics or practical, I'm not sure. The conversation has certainly been leaning on that side. But like you bring up, because I think a lot of the focus is trying to find a way to create a co-working space basically in the downtown.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that, the planning and zoning issues there are existent but not significant, whereas the idea if we were to encourage people to set up shop in their home more, that's a much more kind of significant planning issue.
Yeah.
And how our different business districts and residential are zoned. So maybe, at some point we'll just make sure to just kind of keep in contact about that. And maybe at one point during that code review process, we can just have a little piece of the conversation that is about, what does it mean to run a home-based business in South Orange, and whether they work at home or whether they work at Starbucks. Maybe we can make sure that that's just on the table.
Because what we had at the code review forum was people with existing businesses in physical, like brick and mortar in our downtown, Irvington Avenue, but we had zero turnout from people who are either entrepreneurs working from home or finding satellite offices. So that group is not represented at all in what we're doing right now. So if this is legitimately what some of the conversations are that trustees are having, then I'd welcome that. I think that's a great idea.
So yeah, let's make sure to merge those two parts of that
Well,
conversation.
we had that as part of the conversation that when we had the consultants in looking at what we were doing as in planning. And in fact, that was one of the ideas that, it may even be in the planning document.
What, the vision plan?
Yeah, that they produced. It was an open conversation. And in fact, opportunities exist for people like accountants, where you go into tax season, they're looking for a place where they can bring their clients, but normally they would be doing business out of home.
It's like flex space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, if anybody else, this, started like with me tweeting at people who do co-working spaces and then meeting with, it's very informal.
We have so many people doing that now.
There
It's
are-
incredible.
There are, and I think people see all of the growth in our downtown and are seeing this as more and more of a place to invest in, which is very exciting. It's exciting when you meet people totally outside of the South Orange circles that have heard of the great things that are happening in South Orange's downtown. So that was another. That was the first one. Seton Hall. There are some students at Seton Hall that are putting together a really amazing event on November 8th, which I'll send more formal invitations to everybody in the board, and we'll send a little more information out to the community as well. Basically, what they want to do is create a workshop space where we can take some very kind of high-level policy issues, global policy issues, and talk about what the university and what the town can do to work on those issues. What's kind of cool about this is a lot of the times we've had these forums with the university, we've kind of said, okay, well, we're going to get an elected official, a village government person, a resident, a business owner, all these different interest groups, and then someone from Seton Hall. And we're kind of like flipping that a little bit, where we've got all these different interest groups from Seton Hall, athletics, Greek life, different academic departments, different schools, student government, all these different groups of Seton Hall, and then inviting folks from town to come kind of participate in that, where the students are really going to lead the discussion. And so we've identified about a half dozen different issues that we're going to talk about, and have some invitations going out to people who are already kind of volunteering in town as people that might be really interested to be engaged in that. And so soon there'll be a Facebook and an Eventbrite and a few other things online that people can look at about that. But pretty excited about it, and really happy that the students at Seton Hall are showing not only the interest in doing this, but are organizing it completely on their own. And it's just a great. I think it's going to be a great conversation. So that's just something I wanted to bring up. I will get more details and send the invites around as we get a little bit closer, give a little bit more information about all the different workshops that are happening, and if folks in town are interested in coming and participating, it's certainly open to everybody. Another update, Sustainable Jersey has a task force that I think I've mentioned here before, that includes a whole bunch of different people. It includes a couple elected officials, some managers and business administrators, someone from the state police and Office of Emergency Management, people from the media, maybe about 24 people altogether that are working on how to find ways to better engage with and communicate with communities, especially through local government. So there's all these different focuses. There's a citizen interaction engagement focus. There's an emergency communication focus. So we had a couple of really interesting conversations the other day. Basically, the task force has been formed very recently, split off into some smaller groups to work on different issues. Again, I mean, it's an amazing opportunity because you got all these people who are doing some of the things that we talk about doing here, and they're doing it in some other towns too. So it's kind of interesting to hear their experiences and learn from that. But again, this is another area where you go out and everybody at the table pretty much has heard of South Orange and what we do to try and communicate better with our community, to try and make information available to people, and just it makes me just exceptionally proud to be in these meetings and know that there's so many people in South Orange that are doing this kind of work to try and connect to government and citizens better. And I think that we're seeing a lot of success there, and we have a lot more to do. But that people outside of South Orange see the value in that, in addition to the people in South Orange, and people are always asking. And there's a lot of towns, I mean, it's hard for us to think about sometimes, but there are a lot of towns that don't really have a municipal website, that don't put their budget online barely at all. And so there's just really, we've shown a lot of leadership for a long time in a lot of those regards. And anyway, there's just going to be some interesting topics that I'll bring up periodically as we kind of dig down and study some different issues. The emergency communication one is a big one, collecting power outages and finding a better way to get that information from municipal government to county government to state government and out to the utility companies. Looks like that might be a project that we're going to be working on. And there's a whole bunch of others. So as I get assigned in my group the different projects I'll be working on, I'll just update you guys once a month on those different things. But it's a really good group of people in Sustainable Jersey. We had their executive director Randy Solomon come in, and this is a good segue to the next update, with Chris Daggett, who runs the Dodge Foundation, into the class that I'm co-teaching at Seton Hall. And we've had a couple really interesting speakers come in. I think the last time I updated, it was after that. And they talked a lot about how nonprofits and governments can work together and talked about some of the examples of how we've worked with Sustainable Jersey here in South Orange. Then we had a gentleman by the name of Andrew Nicklin, who is works out of the governor's office in New York, and he's in charge of something called Open NY, which is this unbelievable open data portal that the state runs, that we do not have anything equivalent of in New Jersey, which is unfortunate. That is really, really pushing some pretty cool boundaries on how you can use data to make government work better. And it talked about the development of, that basically, kind of the star example of this is public transit, at a larger city level where public transit agencies all kept track of schedules and line information all in their own format. Nobody could read the formats. It wasn't available to anybody. And a long time ago, Google started pushing people to make these available so that, in select cities you could see, Google Maps, now we see it everywhere, right? The transit directions. That didn't exist at one point, even though all cities had that information, because they were running their train systems and bus systems. And so there's just this amazing movement of people who have made some of this government data available, and then now you can go on Google Maps and you can get, almost anywhere in the country you can get public transit directions around. And that private innovation came from government just saying, well, we have the data already, we're just going to now put it out in a format that anybody can take it and read it and is exportable to anything. So when we talk about data, sometimes it's kind of boring, but on the other hand, the opportunity that it offers for innovation and for something that a consumer or a citizen could really use is pretty incredible. Because the government doesn't have to actually do the innovation, they just have to create the ability for someone else to do the innovation, and then create a business model on top of that. So he spoke, and that was a very interesting class. And we also had a whole bunch of people from the local media landscape come in and speak from the Dodge Foundation, from Jersey Shore Hurricane News, from New Brunswick Today, from New Jersey Media Commons. It had what was a pretty interesting conversation around the role that local media plays in government, how to create sustainable local media business models, as we've seen that it's been harder to do than maybe one would expect. So I had a lot of very smart people working on this every single day, talk to us a little bit about how that looked. And that was, pretty interesting as well. Obviously, our relationship with the media and theirs with the citizens is something that's really important for us to get information out. Even during an emergency, local media, especially the online media, is a 100% trusted, valued conduit where we are putting information out and hoping that we get information back. So understanding those relationships is really important and just, really interesting. And one last thing is just a reminder that I should have said in the beginning, which is that we do have a planning meeting on Monday at 7 o'clock, and that is in our temporary offices at 76 South Orange Avenue. And so we have to get information out to the rest of the board very shortly about that. It's a little bit behind, but just if there's any member of the public who wishes to attend, sit in on that, 7 o'clock at 76 South Orange Ave on Monday. Mr. Lewis?